The numbers are now starting to speed up. We're seeing it show up in hospitalization, especially in Northwest Iowa. It's a big problem. Our cumulative positivity has been increasing every single day. Even on the weekend days when we get low reporting, our cumulative positivity is increasing. Our 14-day positivity is holding steady for the whole state. There are definitely counties where it's increasing drastically: Sioux, Lyon, Plymouth, counties that are in Northwest or Southwest Iowa, actually. Because we have so little testing, our daily positivities can go really high one day and then really low the next, depending on whether or not there were tests, whether or not anyone needed to get tested.
It's interesting because if you look, we predicted that, about 3 to 5 weeks following both return to learn in person as well as Labor Day, we would see these giant surges. And today we are seeing those surges manifesting, and we're exactly 4 weeks out. So it's right in the timeline we predicted. And unfortunately, the base at which we started is not zero like it was in March. The base at which we started is already magnitudes higher. So if we just keep on increasing, I can't even imagine where we'll be come a month or two from now. If we would put into place a mask mandate, we could see a drastic turnaround in days. In other places, both in the country as well as around the world, we've seen that within 5 days, you can drastically change the trajectory of infection transmission just with the mask mandate. And within 3 weeks, you can see places where it was rapidly increasing in a very steep slope suddenly have a complete curtail in where that transmission rate is going.
That's what I've seen in disease research as well, peer-reviewed publications. Also just looking at the data in other countries, I'm thinking South Korea, Taiwan, Asian countries specifically, they have wearing a mask is totally normal. It's part of the culture. So when we look to other countries for guidance, we should be looking to countries that have masking as a normal part of society. The fact that the governor herself said she was going to do 2 press conferences a week to update everyone on the pandemic in the state, and in the last 2 weeks has only done 1, that's not particularly optimistic for where our own state government is going to step in and institute the measures that we need. At this point, and this is according to the White House Coronavirus Task Force, we should be in a lockdown. We're not. The governor refuses to acknowledge that that's even an option anymore. Not that it was even an option back in April when everywhere else in the country was doing it. Even when we all do the right things, if there is a certain percentage of people who refuse to do the right thing, stay home when they've been reasonably exposed, wear a mask at all times, the infection is still going to infect people who do the right things, because when you have enough people who are sick, it starts affecting the people who are doing everything right.
Masks, everybody with masks equals quarantines.
Oh man, I that's dumb. It's dumb and unsafe, because isolating and quarantining goes hand in hand with wearing masks. It's not A or B, it's A and B. If one person is sick but you're both wearing masks, somehow magically you're safe. That's not true. That's not even true for an N95. A mask does not make you 100% safe. It makes you more safe than if you weren't wearing one. And if both people are wearing them, then both people are more safe, but it's not like you put a magic bubble shield around you and you can just walk through the world perfectly fine. It's not how it works. And now all of these school districts are instituting the guidance from the state saying, if everybody has a mask, then we don't need to quarantine. Masks slow spread, they don't prevent it.
So that the basis for that, at least from what I'm extrapolating from the press conference and what Dr. Padati and Governor Reynolds have stressed, is the fact that the research does show that masking reduces transmission. We know that, it's true, but that's on a population level. So to apply it in this type of setting is a classical ecological fallacy error, which basically means that they are taking what they're seeing at the population level and assuming that it happens at every single individual interaction. One thing that they have not also taken into account is in places where there are mask mandates and we're seeing that decline, there's also the confounder of those places have good contact tracing likely in place. And that contact tracing then makes sure that anybody who was exposed, including those exposed to somebody who had a mask that was positive, isolates appropriately and is tested. And so with all of those taken into account, that is really the way that we have to handle any type of public health pandemic like this. And this new guideline does not fit with the science and is making a lot of these classical errors in extrapolation.
I was really bothered by the fact that in that press conference, Dr. Padati referenced one case study for two hairstylists in Missouri. And then in the same breath was talking about how randomized double-blind trials are the gold standard, but we don't have that anyway, so we should do this. And in my mind, and it was that moment where I realized, is our government, our public health entity, trying to force us to become the case study so that we can look on a state level what spread looks like if we, I guess, passive aggressively shame people into wearing masks instead of instituting a mandate and properly educating everyone on how to wear it. It was a press conference. I don't really have a better description.
What are the organizations or where do you go to get reliable information in the state of Iowa?
Well, that's the problem. If the guidance coming out of our main public health entity and then all of the local county health departments that are linked to it are going against what we know from the CDC, from the World Health Organization, we now have a big problem of trust with regard to public health. IDPH isn't trusted anymore by at least a certain percentage of Iowans. We don't trust the data. We don't trust the guidance because it doesn't go with science. 15% or higher positivity is not only an unsafe metric for sending people into schools, it's not backed by any infectious disease research program whatsoever. It's 5% or lower. It's difficult because those of us who are advocating for public health and trying to provide science and data throughout all of this, we are now being posed as in opposition to the public health entity that functions in our state. It's confusing, and the thing is that those of us who do this work, it's now on us. I think it's probably always been on us, but we have to keep advocating for science-based decision making. And when our own public health entity and our own governor refuse to even acknowledge what science is telling us, we got issues.
There's a few places that I go for reliable, trustworthy information, and you two are pretty high on the list, maybe at the top.
Oh, well, thank you. Unfortunately, we don't have much power.
We're trying to get some at least, you know.
But you got people that follow you and listen to you, and I mean it's a ripple thing, and ultimately that's what it's going to take.
Infectious Disease Society of America has been one of the most prominent. I mean, it's the organization that houses all infectious disease physicians, advanced practice practitioners, pharmacists, anybody who works and specializes in the world of infectious disease. That is the organization that represents them. I actually sit on their 12-member public health advisory committee. And so we've been working a lot on the guidelines as far as COVID, and it's a very stringent process, and we're very strict on what we put out. So any recommendations that come out of IDSA, I would say, are very valid and is one of the best organizations to look for the truth. Specific to Iowa, that's a little bit harder. We don't really have, unfortunately, a set organization, I would say, that's been able to get the transparent data we need to share the right information out there. As far as recommendations, I have yet to find somebody who gives an organization in Iowa that's giving consistently accurate information, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's sad.
One thing that has been popping up quite a bit in conversations around Iowa, even unfortunately being introduced by some of our leaders, is this concept of herd immunity. And we've seen over and over again that is not something we can rely on when it comes to COVID for multiple reasons. First off, when you are looking at herd immunity, you assume that a prior infection means that you can't get reinfected. That's not what we're seeing in the data. In fact, we're seeing reinfection is in fact happening. We just don't know why certain people are more susceptible than others. Another issue with this concept of herd immunity is that if somebody has antibodies in their serum, we still don't know if that means that they actually are protective against reinfection and how long they last. So if we are relying on herd immunity, the only sense that we could even go off of would be antibody presence in the population. And that's once again assuming that antibody presence means protection, which we don't know if it does. And looking at Iowa's population alone, less than 3% of people actually have antibodies in their serum, which is their blood. With that low of seroprevalence, there's no way we can get to the 70% threshold without millions more dying.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate both of you and taking the time to do this.
Oh, thanks a bunch for trying to get the right information out there.
Yeah.
I
And I like to hear you guys shop talk.
We're nerds. It's fine, you know.
Yeah, it's also it's nice to know that there are other people out there that that are kind of on the same, like, it's nice to know when you're on the same team with other people and that you can commiserate, but also like talk about what to do next together.
Well, there's synergy that happens and stuff comes to light that singularly we wouldn't have thought of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, I'm gonna let you go.
Okay.
Thanks a lot. Have a good weekend.
You too.
I'll see you next week.
Yeah, I'll see you next week, Sarah.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.